Kachul glanced around cautiously before leaning in to whisper to Jin-Woo. We're going in too. Jin-Woo nodded with a sly grin. Oh yes. Just then, someone hissed. Pust. Hunter Sung turned toward the sound. A voice whispered. Hey Hunter Sung, if you join the raid, it'll be over way too fast. Just hang back and watch, okay? The request was kinda pointless anyway, since Sung was there to observe their training in the first place. He shrugged and replied, of course, no big deal tomorrow. He'd be tackling a bunch of C-rank dungeons with Jinhyo, so he didn't need to interfere with the White Tiger Guild's practice today. Jin-Woo had planned to unleash his shadow soldiers in the dungeon with Jinhyo, which was why he brought Songji along. But there was a catch. He didn't want her to see how easily he could take down magic beasts with his shadow army. If she realized how powerful he was, her big dreams of becoming a top hunter might get even bigger. The two of them walked side by side toward the gate, ready for whatever lay ahead. The other hunters greeted them with smiles. Hello, one said, and another added, nice to meet you. This raid wasn't about getting rich. It was a teamwork thing. The more hunters they had, the better their chances. So, they went around introducing themselves one by one. When it was the A-rank hunter's turn, he just grunted, pass, and walked through the gate. We should go in too, someone said. After him, the White Tiger Guild trainees stepped through one by one, ready for whatever was next. Songyi glanced back at Jin-Woo before dashing through the entrance. What about you? She asked with a grin. Jin-Woo crossed his arms and said coolly, you go first. She looked a bit nervous but nodded and sprinted inside. Jin-Woo let out a quiet sigh as he stood in front of the gate. He felt like someone was staring at him and turned to see Kachul waving wildly and cheering him on. Jin-Woo faced the gate again, his eyes narrowing slightly. Wait, something wasn't right. The gate's surface kept wiggling and rippling like water waves. It should calm down and look smooth when no one is passing through it. But this one kept moving restlessly. There was something super weird about this gate. Jin-Woo tapped it curiously. Shloop. The surface felt all sticky and gooey, like melted caramel. When he pulled his finger back, it stretched out like chewed bubble gum. Wait. What the bix? Jin-Woo spun around, eyes wide with panic. He and Kachul locked gazes. Both of them knew something was seriously off. Get your best team here. Now. Jin-Woo yelled suddenly, but before he could say another word, whoosh, the gate sucked him in like a vacuum cleaner. Kachul stared in shock. What just? Assistant manager. Without hesitation, Kachul sprinted toward the gate. 3 White Tiger workers rushed after him. Kachul stood at the gate, looking totally stunned. No way, he exclaimed. The hunters weren't the only rookies here. He'd also brought new office workers for training. None of them had ever seen anything like this before. The other workers stared at Kachul, fear written all over their faces. Assistant Manager Hyun. The gate's turning red, someone cried. The red spread across the gate like a drop of blood, or paint splattered on its surface. Kachul ignored everyone else, and quickly made a call. Hello, a voice answered. Sir, it's Kachul. The trainees just went through a gate that turned bright red. There was a pause before Sangmin responded sharply. What are you talking about? How can a red gate come from a C-rank one? Kachul turned around, his eyes wide with shock. The gate was now completely red, and the shimmering on its surface had started to slow down. He gulped hard. I'm not sure either, but it's definitely a red gate, sir. What? Why Yun-Ho Buk, leader of the White Tiger Guild, hurried to the scene as soon as he heard the news. Kachul, the man in charge of training, looked like he had seen a ghost. Sir, it's one of them, started to warn, but President Bak just said, I need to see this for myself. He marched past the employees by the gate, who looked like they were at a funeral with their serious faces. He stared at the gate in shock. A real red gate, he muttered. What was a red gate? It was like a super dangerous doorway to another world. Once you went through, the only way out was to defeat the big bad boss on the other side, or wait patiently for the dungeon to break apart on its own. As soon as a hunter stepped inside, there was no turning back. The red gate would seal everything outside away, making it impossible to get in or out. The president ran his hand over the gate's surface. It was just as he'd feared, solid as stone. This wasn't good. No matter what they tried, there was no way to help the hunters trapped inside. He snapped at Kachul. Wasn't this supposed to be a C-rank gate? It was, sir. Did you have the association confirm? Yes, but They said it was definitely a C-rank gate. Yoon-ho muttered angrily. Those guys are impossible.
And red gate should only come from higher-ranking dungeons.
These portals connected their world to another, and considering how much mana was flowing through this one, there's no way it could have been ranked as low as C. This gate was definitely at least a B rank, maybe even an A rank or higher. But the association still refused to admit they made a mistake. Kachul stepped forward. Sure, should we double-check with our own mana meter just to be sure? Red gates are locked down tight. There's no way to get an accurate reading. So, there was no way to know the gate's true rank for sure. But honestly, there were bigger problems to worry about right now. How many of our members are inside? Kachul asked. 12 came the reply. And how many of them are high-rank hunters? There's Hunter Chul Kim, who's an A rank, and 7 B rank hunters with him. Kachul frowned. 1 A rank and 7 B rank hunters. What about the new recruits? Will they be okay? President Bake shook his head again, his expression grim. Let's be honest, most of them probably won't survive. If they're super lucky, maybe 2 or 3 A or B ranked hunters might make it out alive. But only if everything goes just right. The odds are totally against them. These hunters barely managed to get through the easiest B-rank dungeon there is. Anything tougher than that, forget about it, it's way too dangerous for them. It was basically a death sentence for those trainees. No way they'd survive without some kind of miracle. Bak looked super worried, like he was about to freak out any second. Then Kachul stepped forward and said, sir, there's something else. The president looked up, probably thinking, what now? And then it hit him. What if a high-ranking hunter just happened to be walking by, got curious about the training, and decided to tag along with the newbies? Miracles are rare, but this could be one. His voice rose with excitement. Who is it? He shouted. The reply came from behind them. Yoonho and Kichul spun around to see Sangmin, huffing and puffing, drenched in sweat. Sorry I'm late, Sangmin said, trying to catch his breath. The traffic was backed up something fierce. Sangmin got there last because he lived the farthest away. He gazed at the red gate in front of him. It looked super intimidating, like the entrance to some kind of iron fortress. Just staring at it made him feel trapped. But then he thought about Jin-Woo Sung. Jin-Woo had a way of changing things, defying bad predictions, and flipping fate on its head, just like he'd done before. Sangmin held onto a slim chance. Yoonho rushed over to him. Hey, you've been watching this hunter, right? Manager is in charge of him. Exactly, Sangmin replied. Yoonho's eyes lit up. He remembered hearing about this before. Manager had been super busy lately, tracking down a special hunter. The guy had an eye for talent like no one else. Could this be the one they'd been waiting for? A spark of hope flickered. What rank is he? Yoonho asked eagerly. Rank, or E rank? Bog? Ugh, his voice tight with worry. Yoonho was a top S-rank hunter, and there were only about 10 of those in all of Korea. If Jin-Woo were an S-rank, Yoonho would definitely know him. But Sangmin shook his head firmly. Bobik's face slowly relaxed. So does that mean an S-rank hunter went in there? He asked, hopefully. Sangmin replied calmly. No sir, Jin-Woo's actually an E rank. Bobik's expression changed like he'd just bitten into a lemon. Jin-Woo was stunned. Wait, does this gate lead to another world? Jin-Woo had read stories about this online, but now he was experiencing it himself for the first time. Could it really be true? Everyone said. It felt like being sucked into the gate. And Jin-Woo thought that was the perfect way to describe it. Once he was inside, everything went black, and he felt like he was sliding towards some unknown place. When he opened his eyes, he found himself standing in the middle of a forest blanketed with snow. Where are we? Someone asked. This doesn't feel like the inside of the dungeon, another hunter said, frowning. And where did the gate go? The hunters looked around, clearly confused and amazed by what they saw. While everyone froze in shock, Jin-Woo squinted and scanned their surroundings. To him, everything seemed normal. His training from the system helped him stay calm, even though they were stuck in this weird place. The first thing he noticed was the trees. They were tall and pointy, like pine trees you'd see in pictures, but not really in Korea. They grew close together, stretching up toward the sky like giant green pillars. The sight was cool, but something about it felt off, giving him a subtle chill. He glanced up at the snow weighting down the tree branches. It looked dangerous, like it might fall at any moment. Then he looked back down and caught eyes with someone. It was Chul Kim, an A-rank hunter who, just like Jin-Woo, was scanning the area cautiously. They eyed each other for a moment before turning away. Meanwhile, Songi had slipped over to Jin-Woo and was tugging on his clothes. "Something's wrong, isn't it?" she asked, her voice trembling. Songi's brave act was gone. She was genuinely scared now. Then Jin-Woo did something that shocked her. He reached out toward her face. Songi froze, unsure of what was happening. Suddenly, Jin-Woo snatched an arrow right out of the air. It wobbled angrily, as if furious it had missed its mark. If he hadn't caught it, the arrow would have hit Songi straight between the eyes. Her face turned white. "Ah? Ah?" she cried, realizing how close she'd come to disaster. A scream pierced the air from somewhere else. "Eek!" someone shouted. Then a loud "ah, ah, baal" followed. A male hunter nearby groaned and fell to the ground. After being struck in the forehead by an arrow, the chaos around them was intense. Blood gushed over his eyes and dripped from his mouth. "Ah, ah." Some hunters burst into tears. The arrow had been fired at the same time as the one aimed at Songi. Because of this, no one noticed Jin-Woo catching an arrow in midair. "Over there," someone shouted. "It's those guys." A B-rank hunter pointed toward the top of a distant tree. "Check this out." Jin-Woo's and Chul's eyes were locked on something way before anyone else noticed. There were two people. Or should I say, two creatures. They had white hair, pale skin, and silver eyes that seemed to shimmer like ice. And let's not forget their pointy ears. These weren't just any magical creatures. They were super rare and only showed up in the toughest dungeons. What were they? Ice elves, also known as ice slayers. Folks who'd never met them called them ice elves, but hunters who'd faced them knew better. They called them ice slayers, and usually added that elves was way too nice a name for these jerks. Jin-Woo quickly saw why experienced hunters hated ice slayers so much. They're smiling. The two creatures lowered their bows and gave the hunters an eerie grin. It was like they were standing in front of a grand buffet, trying to decide where to start. "And what did you choose?" Jin-Woo scratched his head, thinking hard. One arrow had been aimed at the far left side of the group, and another at the far right. This wasn't random. The hunter who got hit by an arrow was a man in his 30s, who had just recently discovered his powers as a C-rank awakenee. Jin-Woo glared at the ice slayers, their moves as transparent as ice itself. He snatched an arrow they'd aimed at Songi and snapped it in half with a sharp crack. The archer who fired that shot sneered, running his finger across his throat in a threatening gesture. "They really think I'm an easy target," Jin-Woo thought. Without the system's help, he would have been the one pierced by their arrows. But now, he wasn't having it. The archer mocked him, but Jin-Woo just smirked coldly. His eyes locked onto the man with a deadly intensity. "I'll show you what happens when you mess with me." He didn't say a word, but his gaze screamed one thing. "You're going down." The ice slayer zoomed off down the tree, leaving Chul and the others behind. "Guess that was the welcoming committee," Chul finally said with a smirk. He didn't need to introduce himself as the leader. His status as the only A-rank hunter in the group made it clear. He was in charge. "All right, you've probably figured this out already, but just to make sure we're all on the same page," Chul began, his voice confident and straightforward. "We're inside a red gate." He didn't sugarcoat anything, which some might call bold, but everyone knew they needed clarity, not fluff, if they were going to survive this mission. Of course no one complained. "That means we'll all die, or they'll come to help us once the gate expires, and there's a dungeon break." The group was crushed. Aha. Hearing that no one was coming to save them hit everyone hard. Chul continued, "If we stay here, we'll either freeze or get taken down by those ice monsters." Chul puffed out his chest and declared, "I'm going to clear this dungeon and get out, even if I have to do it myself. Who's with me?" People usually trusted Chul because of his broad shoulders and fearless look. The hunters glanced at each other, before nodding in agreement. "Let's stick together. I'm in. Let's survive this." "I'll help too." But when the last hunter stepped forward, Chul suddenly pushed him hard in the chest. Oof. The guy stumbled back, wincing in pain. "Not you," Chul said firmly. "Huh?" the man asked, confused. Chul pointed to a few others, including the man. "And not you, or you, or you either." His strength was still controlled, but as an A-rank hunter, even a light push was surprisingly powerful. Jin-Woo and Songyi were among the ones he pointed out. Jin-Woo raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised. He had picked 5 hunters in total, all ranked. Sorry, but I can't have you tagging along, he said firmly. What do you mean? Someone asked, confusion evident in their voice. Do you know anything about red gates? Jin-Woo replied, his tone curious. The other man shook his head, unsure of what to say. 1 hour outside the gate is like a whole day inside here, Jin-Woo explained, making it clear why he couldn't let them join. Imagine the worst happens. It could take months before I can break out of this dungeon, or beat the boss. I don't need any dead weight slowing me down. A hunters, Chul picked on, bristled at his words. What? Are we just leftovers to you? They protested. But when Chul shot them a cold, hard glare, they shut up fast. He acted like he was doing them some huge favor by even letting them stick around. Don't get too upset, someone said. If you can just survive until we beat the boss, everyone can go home. But still, the hunters who were left out looked at Chul's team with desperate eyes, hoping someone would help. But none of them stepped up. They were all too busy avoiding eye contact. Then, something unexpected happened. Excuse me, a female hunter on Chul's team said, raising her hand. Everyone turned to her in surprise. Chul glanced at her. What is it? He asked irritably. She pointed at Jin-Woo. Can I join their side instead? She asked boldly. Chul shrugged. Sure, if you want. Without hesitation, the woman walked over to Jin-Woo's group. Chul watched her go, then smirked at Jin-Woo. Since we have a spot available, I'll take one more. Kunstem. Me. The male hunter who had been shoved by Chul quickly ran forward before changing his mind. That was a normal reaction Jin-Woo could understand. This woman is weird. He looked over at her suspiciously. The female hunter met his gaze and whispered quietly to him. That Chul guy didn't even see those arrows coming. Even if a person was a high-rank hunter, it didn't mean all their stats were equally high. Even a top-ranked hunter can have low agility. Jin-Woo, who understood how stats worked, didn't think her comment was weird.
Yeah, so?
He replied. She stared at him with a big smile on her face. Wait, you're not actually an E rank.
Are you?
Outside the red gate, President Baek looked worried. Even after Sangmin had told him about Jin-Woo, he couldn't shake off his uneasy feeling, so this is just a guess.
He asked. Sangmin nodded reluctantly.
That's right. No one knew for sure about Jin-Woo. If the president met Hunter Sung face to face, things would make sense. There was something off about Jin-Woo that no one could quite explain. Songmin was stuck, unable to put his thoughts into words. Yun-ho turned toward the entrance again. Then we only have Chul to count on, he said, trailing off. Just as Yun-ho spoke, a new voice cut in. Don't worry about Chul. Another person stepped into their circle, and the group turned to see who it was. All three swiveled around as someone new walked in. It was Sung Chan-ju, the manager of the first administration team. He stood tall and spoke with confidence. I've trained Hunter Kim for every possible situation, he said. Usually the second administration team handles training new hunters, but when it comes to high-ranking awakened beings, like those who are a rank or higher, it's the first team's job. The members picked for the elite strike squad took a different path. Sung Chen seemed so sure of himself that the president's worried face relaxed a little. How were Chul's results? Great, sir, came the reply. His combat skills are as good as anyone in the elite squad right now. The president raised an eyebrow. Really? Yun-ho finally even managed a small smile. Chul was an A-rank hunter, and his talents made him stand out from the crowd like a superstar. Maybe Chul could pull this off. If he could lead the B-rank hunters through the dungeon successfully, they might all make it out alive. Sure, some of the C-rank hunters might not survive. That was pretty much expected. But the high-ranking ones like Chul were way more important to the White Tiger Guild. Luckily, Chul seemed like one of the strongest hunters around. He was basically their last hope, and for a moment there that flame of hope had almost gone out. But now it was flickering back to life. Sung Chan finally managed to calm down the worried president. But then he shot Sangmin a curious glance, raising an eyebrow as if to say, "What's going on with you?" You mentioned something about an E-rank hunter, possibly coming back, he said with a smirk. Our guy Chul is way more trustworthy than some hunter who might not even show up. Sangmin tightened his jaw at the attitude. but he didn't think yelling or getting mad would help. We'll see who's right in the end. Suddenly, all 4 men turned toward the red gate where their hunters were being held. The deep crimson color of the gate looked even more intimidating than usual. Hey, you're not really an E-rank hunter, are you? Someone asked boldly. Jin-Woo smiled and fired back. Then let me ask you something. Sure, the man replied. Jin-Woo glanced over at Chul and the group of hunters surrounding him. They were talking about their plan before heading out. How can you guys stay so calm when things are so serious? One of them asked. The rookies had learned early on that dungeons were full of surprises, and you had to be ready for anything. Jin-Woo knew this better than anyone. He'd been through a lot in these places. The group didn't seem scared because they had trained hard, especially Chul. He was being prepared for the White Tiger's top team. All that practice helped them stay calm when things got tough. Jin-Woo thought this whole situation was totally crazy. Suddenly it hit him. They weren't much better than Songgi. Sure, they acted like they were ready, but deep down, did they really know what they were getting into? They could talk all they wanted about their training, but the truth was, they had no clue how terrifying dungeons actually were. Just because you know something doesn't mean you've experienced it. Dungeons have a way of shaking your confidence, and once you're scared, even a little, things can quickly fall apart. Building walls takes time, but breaking them down happens fast. Jin-Woo knew what was coming for Chul's team. They looked strong on the outside, but deep down they were still learning. You haven't answered me yet, a woman said, her voice firm but curious. Excuse me. Jin-Woo turned to her, raising an eyebrow. I asked you a question, she reminded him. Jin-Woo stayed quiet for a moment. She had asked if he was really an E-rank hunter. Hee-jin turned out to be even more determined than he had imagined. When he bluntly asked, why do I have to answer you? Hee-jin felt like she'd won a small victory. She'd dealt with enough people to understand his reactions. She came off as confident and self-assured, which only made her more certain she was right about him. While training with the White Tiger Guild, Hee-jin had seen many top hunters in action, but Jin-Woo's move earlier was something else. It was lightning fast. She could barely believe her eyes. As a combat hunter who used to be an athlete, she knew her physical skills were solid. Yet, there was something about Jin-Woo that made her sit up straight. Hee-jin's eyes lit up with curiosity. This guy must be at least a rank, maybe even higher, she thought. She decided to ask him again, determined to get the answers she sought. Come on, just tell me already, Jin-Woo said, sounding annoyed. Mind your own business, was the short reply. That was enough chit-chat. Jin-Woo turned away, done with being grilled. Besides, Jin-Woo's heading their way. Jin-Woo sized each other up for a moment. We're going. Jin-Woo's voice was super deep and rough, making him sound like he always meant business down that path. It didn't sound like he was just sharing plans. It felt more like a challenge, or maybe even a warning. He shot Jin-Woo a look that asked, what's your plan? While also giving him a silent warning. Don't follow us. What? Jin-Woo glanced around casually before turning back. We'll be heading into the forest, he said coolly. The other guy raised an eyebrow. Good luck. Chulshu's team was the one that would probably need it. But Jin-Woo kept that thought to himself. You too, he replied with a small smirk. With that, Jin-Woo and his team turned and disappeared into the trees.